Hello and welcome to this tutorial about implementing hybrid identities with Microsoft Entra Connect. In this tutorial, you will learn how to connect the on-premises Active Directory with cloud-based Entra ID to synchronize the identities from on-premises to the cloud. My name is Navneet Kumar. I'm a Microsoft certified trainer and the founder of TrainCrest Technologies. Microsoft Entra ID Connect is a software that is used to connect the on-prem Active Directory with cloud-based Microsoft Entra ID. It is essential tool for organizations looking to migrate to a hybrid identity environment. The key functions of this tool are synchronization. So it continuously syncs the user identities, the groups, and the other directory objects like the devices from the Active Directory to Entra ID. It provides various authentication options. It offers these authentication methods like password hash synchronization, where you can decide to synchronize the user accounts with their password hashes to the cloud. Pass-through authentication, if your organization does not allow to synchronize the password hashes of the users to the cloud, then you can go with pass-through authentication, and the authentication will happen with the help of a pass-through authentication agent deployed in your on-premises. And we also can do the federation. The federation can be done between the Entra ID and your on-premises. All the authentication requests will be handled by on-premises federation service. This federation service can be Microsoft's Active Directory Federation Service or the ping or any other third-party Active Directory services you are using for single sign-on. It also allows provisioning the user accounts or the groups, these sort of identities to the cloud applications based on the attributes in the Active Directory. So you can synchronize and provision these users, groups, or the computers. You can synchronize also as devices to the Entra ID. Provisioning is another key function of the Entra Connect. Entra Connect is used for the complex environments or for the large organizations which require the full-fledged tool to do this synchronization of the identities for Exchange hybrid or for any other kind of identities to synchronize from on-premises to the cloud. If you want to synchronize only the users and the groups to the cloud, you can also use the Cloud Sync tool. That Cloud Sync tool is a lightweight agent as compared to this Entra Connect, which is a full-fledged tool to do this all hybrid integration. So if your focus is only on syncing users and groups, then you can think of using the Cloud Sync as well. This video will be on Entra Connect. There will be a different video on the Cloud Sync tool. The components this Entra Connect tool uses are the sync engine. So the sync engine handles the synchronization process between the Active Directory and the Entra ID. Synchronization Service Manager is there, which manages this synchronization configuration you do, and this is to be done in on-premises. Whereas if you use Cloud Sync, you use that configuration or management from the portal in the cloud. AD Connector is another tool which connects to the Active Directory in on-premises. Entra ID Connector or Azure AD Connector, that connects to the cloud-based Entra ID. And once these all tools are clubbed, so it will help you in synchronizing the identities to the cloud. What authentication method you want to use, password hash synchronization, pass-through authentication, or the federation, you can take help of decision making tree that is available on Microsoft Learn. So that Entra ID decision making tree for the hybrid identities will help you understand that in what scenario you should go with which option. For an instance, if I want to use the smart card authentications, I want all the password policies, account policies of my on-premises directory to take place. So then I should consider doing the authentication from my on-premises federation servers. So I must go with the federation. But if that is not the requirement of using the on-premises multi-factor authentication servers or on-premises federation servers to do the authentication, So then we can think of password hash synchronization or pass-through authentication agent. In the demo, you will learn about installing and configuring the Entra Connect to synchronize the identities from on-premises Active Directory to Entra ID. As I mentioned earlier, that Entra Connect tool need to be managed from on-premises because it's a full-fledged tool with all the features related to the synchronization or to configure the authentication. So it is a tool for medium or large scale organizations to handle the overall hybrid identity management, and the management is done in on-premises. So I have connected to a server, on-premises server, to synchronize the identities from on-premises to the cloud or Entra ID. As far as the best practice to place this Entra Connect server or software is, so we should install it on a member server instead of installing it on a domain controller directly. Because if you install it on a member server, then you get the improved performance because you have a dedicated server for this job. You also do the resource allocation for this server for dedicated resources and without impacting the performance or components of the domain controllers, which is one of the crucial component of your Active Directory domain. Another thing is security, that you are isolating Entra Connect from the domain controller. So it reduces the risk of the security as well. It is also beneficial in terms of availability, so it reduces the risk of service disruptions. Okay, if the domain controller experiences any issue, so your Entra Connect tool will be running or will not have that impact on it. So for domain controllers, of course, we have multiple additional domain controllers. They will handle the authentications and other operations. So they are there with the high availability. So we should consider using this on a member server as a best practice. So the server that you see is in a domain which is adatom.com, which I will use to synchronize the identities to the Entra ID. And then the member server is this London server one. Now, one thing that you need to do prior to start the synchronization of the identities or configuring the Entra Connect is to add this domain as a verified domain on your Entra ID, because you want to have your users to have the same UPN. So if there is a user, let's say alex at adatom.com, so I want that user's UPN in the cloud also to access the cloud applications as alex at adatom.com. So you need to go and add this domain as a verified domain on your Entra ID Connect. If you do not do so, then you need to define that what will be the domain name that your synchronized identities will use. If you do not have any verified domain on your Entra ID Connect, Entra ID, so it will use that .onmicrosoft.com available domain, the domain that ends with .onmicrosoft.com. So we need to ensure that we keep the same UPN in the real world, but in this testing training environment, I'm good with that available domain with the suffix .onmicrosoft.com. That is the available initial or mandatory domain on an Entra ID. Well, my next job will be to install the Entra Connect tool, and to install that I'll go to the internet and download this tool on this local machine to initiate the deployment. I have not downloaded it in advance to just show you that we are going to download it and install it from scratch. Even I have not done the installation of this tool here. So download Entra Connect. So you'll visit the Microsoft's official website and download this tool from there and start using it to synchronize the identities. So here we get this link, download Microsoft Entra Connect. And this is the Entra Connect. Important, selecting a language below will dynamically change the complete page content to the language. So that's fine. I will click on the download. The version it was showing me, so I can choose that. It also shows you the installation instructions. You can visit the Microsoft documentation page for that. Now this MSI has been downloaded. I will start deployment of this Entra Connect tool and will guide you through all the options that come up during the deployment of this Entra Connect. Well, once you start the deployment of it, so there will be few basic questions like the location of this tool, where do you want to install it. So basically what happens is initially it will give you the two options, that whether you want to go with express settings or customized settings. License agreement, that I'm going to agree. Okay, and now I continue. Now here you will see that express settings will do some default settings, like the default installation location will be there. It will do the Active Directory Forest atom.com synchronization. It will automatically go with password as synchronization. If I want to use pass-through authentications or federation, I need to customize. Starts the initial synchronization immediately. Maybe I want to keep it in the staging mode, and later I will plan to synchronize the identities. So I need to customize. It will synchronize all the attributes, will not provide me the scope of selecting the attributes or the identities that I want to synchronize. Enable auto upgrade. So auto upgrade of this will also be automatically enabled. So if you want a quick deployment, then you can go by ignoring the parameters and go with this default configuration and use express settings. Or else, if you want to do the advanced configuration, then you can go to customize. Now here you will see several options. One option is that where do you want to install it. So by default, go to the C program files. If you want this tool to be installed somewhere else, then you can define it somewhere else. So formerly this tool was known as Azure AD Sync or Azure AD Connect. So, or Directory Sync it was known as prior to that. So it is the location C program files, but I can change this location to somewhere else. I will go with this default location right now. Second thing it is asking is for the SQL database instance. So if I do not define a SQL instance, it will use the SQL Express, which is the free version of the SQL from Microsoft. But SQL Express will have some limitations, like it can only be used if I'm syncing the 100,000 users. So if I have more than 100,000 identities to synchronize, then I will need to consider a dedicated instance of SQL. So SQL Express may have some limitations. If I want advanced capabilities of SQL, the SQL Server reporting services, and the dedicated instance for it, then I can define that instance of my SQL for this tool. I will go with SQL Express in this case here. Now it is asking for a service account. Actually, this is an application. This application will synchronize the user attributes every 30 minutes or whatever I configure. Okay, so on that frequency, it need to do this job, it need to run that service, and it need to authenticate to the Entra ID. And by authentication means that not only to the Entra ID but the on-premises Active Directory as well, it need to authenticate. So by authenticating, this account will be given access to do the changes. Okay, so I can create a service account in advance, and that I can specify. Or what I can do is, for connecting to my on-premises Active Directory, I can pass on my enterprise admin credentials during the deployment of this tool, and it will automatically create that service account. So this tool will require a service account in the Active Directory in on-premises. So either I create that service account in advance and specify that service account, or I can go with managed service accounts also, whose passwords or credentials are rotated by the domain controllers automatically. So you need not to rotate the passwords of those type of service accounts. So if you want to keep it simple for the deployment, then you can pass on the enterprise admin credentials during the setup. Later on it will ask, and it will create and configure that service account automatically. The tool will do this job for you, will make it easy. You can specify the custom sync groups. So these groups that you want to synchronize, you can customize that. You can import the synchronization settings so that you can use them later on. So where do you want to import these settings? So these are the configurable parameters for the installation. I will go with the default settings and then will click on install. You will see that it is installing those all compilers or the SQL Express database. It will install in some time. You will see that OLEDB, and then SQL Server command line, AD Connect, Agent Update Installer. In some time it will show you SQL Express local database installation is going on. Once this deployment is done, then there will be an option to choose the sign-in, that how the users will do the sign-in. There I will decide that whether I want to go with the PHS, PTA, or federation. There are three major options or three categories to do the authentication with hybrid identities. Okay, there can be then combinations of those also that I can use. So let this be installed. Let the binaries be installed on this system, the required components. You will see to manage the Azure AD Connect or this Entra Connect, you will get a dedicated tool, management tool that you can use in your on-premises to configure and set up this synchronization. You can change the settings later on as well from here. Some of the settings are configurable. They can be changed later. But some of the things you should plan in advance, like I was talking about the authentication method. So you should use that hybrid identity decision making tree. You can Google that term, decision making tree. In fact, meanwhile it is going on, so I can show you that. So hybrid identity decision making tree. Let me just put this word also Entra so that it comes up with that link only. So authentication for Microsoft Entra hybrid identity solution. So what different solutions we have available, and choose the right authentication method for your Microsoft Entra hybrid identity. And here you will see this decision making tree that guides you that if this is your requirement, then go with this password hash sync, else go with the pass-through authentication, or pass-through authentication with password hash sync as a backup, as a failover option. And this is for the federation, or federation with password hash sync as a backup. So if you want the DR solution, maybe your on-premises site has an outage and your pass-through authentication agent is unable to help the Entra ID to authenticate, or federation servers are down, so you can go with the password hash synchronization as a backup. So this decision making tree will help you understand and decide that which option is good for you to do the authentication or will fit into your requirement. Okay, now let us go back to this deployment and have a look that we have got the option to choose that what I want to do, password hash synchronization. There are detailed topics on Microsoft Learn also that you can visit. Password has passed through authentication, PTA, and then federation. Federation with the ADFS or federation with ping. So both of the options will come under federation category. Then I have do not configure. Maybe I'm using any third party identity providers, maybe Okta, Shibboleth, or there are any other identity providers that I'm using. So I will decide on sign in later on. I just want to synchronize the identities right now. Then I can say do not configure. Or if I'm going with password as synchronization or pass-through authentication, so you will see there is an additional option available over here, which is enable single sign-on. So you can enable single sign-on for your domain joined devices when you have Entra ID registered or domain joined devices. Then you can enable single sign-on on them so that you need not to provide the credentials every time for login. So that is another option. I will choose the password as synchronization first of all over here, and then we'll go with next. Later I can change it to something else also. Now it is asking for the most privileged account of the Entra ID, because you're going to connect the Active Directory with Entra ID. You're going to sync something to that. So this is the global administrator account of the Entra ID, the account which has full-fledged access in the Entra ID. So all I need to do here is that I will go with this, let's say, I will copy the account, the Entra ID account, and will provide the password. Next. So this is the global admin account. Oops, that's the password. Here we go. And oops, just a sec. Copy, paste. Oh, come on. Oh, that's not a Windows machine, so I need to do Command V. Here we go. Copy and paste that. Oops, I don't know what's going on. Okay, that's Oh, I'm inside the virtual machine, Windows virtual machine. That's fine. So I'll copy it here and will pass it on to this virtual machine that it is not taking. So let me do the clipboard sharing. I will paste that content here. So this is the username. Same I will do with the password. So I will authenticate. Here we go. Copy, and I will paste. Here we go. This is the password. We have detected something unusual about the sign in. For example, you might be signing from a new location device. Actually, I did the identity protection. I turned on the identity protection, and because this virtual machine is running in a different location, so it detected a unusual authentication pattern because I've never logged in from that location. So this is my Entra ID. If I go to the protection, identity protection, I have done a video on identity protection. In fact, that is where I enabled this sign-in risk policy, that if unusual authentication pattern is detected, then what to do. On medium and above, I block the access. So let's say I allow the access and allowed the access without the MFA as a best practice guide, or let me do this for high risk only to block, and high risk I will block the access, or maybe I say allow and allow with multi-factor authentication. It will require the multi-factor authentication. Policy enforcement I have disabled. Let me just disable this instead of setting up the policy. Now I set up I do the authentication once again. So it will pop up for the authentication, who you are. So prove that you are the global administrator. Copy and paste. Next. Next is the password of this global administrator. This password is this, and I'll click on sign in. Once the authentication is successful, I will be connected to the Entra ID. It is examining the domains on that directory, and it will not find that adatum.com domain on the directory. So that is what it is saying, that this is your on-premises directory, excuse me. So you want to connect to the on-premises directory now, and you will say add the directory. This time you will provide the enterprise admin credentials, and it will create a new account as a service account. So I will provide the credentials here. I'm Adatum administrator, and my password here is this, and click OK. So I'm connecting to my on-premises Active Directory. Once it's added, now I will click next. This is the Azure AD sign-in blade. It says that it did not find that adatum.com added on the Entra ID, and that is true. If I show you this directory, if I go to the identities and the settings and the domain names, so I do not have this custom domain added, this adatum.com added. So I did a video on this, on managing identities, where I told you how to add the verified domain. In fact, you just need to go to add custom domain and add the domain here. For an instance, adatum.com. So if your company is adatum and you want to keep the same UPN, all you will do is you will provide that domain name, and then you will prove that the domain belongs to you by providing this text or MX record, text record basically, into your public facing DNS zone. In adatum.com DNS zone, you will create a text record with these values, and then will click verify. I'll not be able to verify that because this domain adatum.com does not belong to me. So I will ignore that for the moment, and then I will go to this, and I will say that I give my consent that okay, continue without matching all the UPN suffixes. The problem here right now is that in on-premises Active Directory, the users have UPN with someone at adatum.com, and they cannot have the same UPN in Entra ID because this domain is not verified on the Entra ID. So I'm giving my consent, and automatically these users will fall into that domain which is ending with .onmicrosoft.com on Entra ID. So suppose there is a user in on-premises, let's say LX at adatum.com. That user in Entra ID will be LX at some random name, that will be the company name actually, .onmicrosoft.com. So for testing purpose, I'm okay with that. Now, what do you want to sync? You want to sync all the domains and the OUs inside this forest, or you can scope it. Maybe in that forest, I have particular domain, or in that particular domain, I have particular OUs that I want to synchronize. Maybe this research OU only, so I can scope this synchronization. Maybe research and sales users will be accessing cloud applications. I can decide the attributes also. So all the attributes I will be going with. So uniquely identifying users, your users. Select how users should be identified in your on-premises directories. Okay, and select how users should be identified in the Azure Active Directory. So let Azure manage the source anchors. Okay, I can define the anchors also. Choose anchor object GUID by which ID I want these users to be identified. Now I can filter this synchronization. So I can define that synchronize these particular groups from the Active Directory, or synchronize all the users and devices. Even though I've selected the OU, research and sales OUs, so which users and groups you want to synchronize, so you can decide that. Now there are some optional features, like I can go with password as synchronization. That's what I have selected by default right now. I can go with password writeback if I'm using the premium tier of the directory, so that the users change the password in Entra ID, that password will be written back to the on-premises. I can do the group writeback, device writeback can be used if I'm using the Entra ID joint devices, so I can use that also. Okay. Uh, so you register a device in Entra ID, that account will be created in on-premises, so you can do that. Directory extension attribute syncs, or exchange mail public folders, exchange hybrid deployments you want to do. There is a exclamation mark in front of each of them, and the explanation about each of the solution which you will use in a particular scenario. Right now I'm going with PHS and also with password write back feature. Now I click on next. I will initiate the installation. After doing the installation, will it start the synchronization immediately, or you want to configure it to staging mode? If you configure it to the staging mode, then the synchronization will not export any data from to the AD or Azure Active Directory. It will not be synchronizing anything. Why do we use that? Suppose I have multiple Active Directory sites in my on-premises. I want that from one site I will configure the Entra Connect in active manner to actively synchronize the identities to the Entra ID. But in another on-premises site, I'll keep it into the backup mode or passive mode on standby. So I will configure that and will keep that in the staging mode, so that if something goes wrong with first site and first Entra Connect, then I can initiate the synchronization from the second site. Then I will click on install. So in this case, it will be installed and configured, but will remain in the standby, on the standby. Now I'll click on install. It will start the synchronization immediately after installation of this tool. So this is configured to synchronize the identities immediately. Now it will copy a PowerShell module on this system locally where I have installed this Entra Connect. And from that PowerShell module, I can decide that I want to trigger a synchronization manually. Okay, maybe I don't want to wait for 30 minutes for users to sync. Okay, so I want to trigger now. I have done some changes. I can decrease the time of that cycle. I can change that. Some troubleshooting, diagnosing, health monitoring related things I can do with this tool. So a PowerShell module will be available. As far as the attribute synchronization is concerned, it takes 30 minutes. By default, it is 30 minutes to sync. When I make changes in on-premises, it will sync within 30 minutes. Okay, cycle runs every 30 minutes. But as far as the password is concerned, it synchronizes synchronously. So if I change the password here in on-premises, the password will be immediately synchronized to the Entra ID. But yes, the current session of the user will not be disconnected if the user is connected with the applications. And as soon as the current session of the application is disconnected or idle timeout it reaches, then it will prompt for the password because the new password has been updated. So passwords are synchronized synchronously within 2 minutes. The passwords are synchronized from from ADDS to the Entra ID. So this is the configuration for this Entra Connect tool in on-premises to synchronize these identities to the Entra ID. If I visit to my Entra ID and I go to the home of this Entra ID, and this is the home, and in that, in fact, I show you the setting for that custom domain. So settings for the identities for the domain names. So because custom domain was failed to be added as adatum.com on this directory, so you will notice that those users will have that ID with the different domain name, which will be this Microsoft 365x some number dot on Microsoft.com, which is the available domain name. Now, if I go back to this tool to see, so this is still going on. And if I show you the state of the Entra Connect over here, so under the identities in the Entra Connect, I will show you the hybrid management. And if I go to the hybrid management for the Microsoft Entra Connect, so here we have the Cloud Sync and the Entra Connect. I'm on the Entra Connect right now. So it tells you about the Entra Connect, how can you configure it, scenario supported, access, how to manage. So this is role-based assignment or management. So download and provision the agent. So this is telling you about Cloud Sync, and this is for Entra Connect. Cloud Sync, I told you, is a lightweight agent to synchronize the users and groups. But if you want a tool which has full-fledged access or the combination of the features that are required for a hybrid integration for an enterprise, so that comes with this Entra Connect. So I can download that tool and configure. So there are two tools here: Entra Connect, which is this Connect Sync, and then we have Cloud Sync. Okay, so if I go to this Entra Connect Sync, here this last sync says that sync has never run on this directory. Password has synchronization is disabled. There is no federation. There is no seamless single sign-on. There is no PTA or PTA agent configured. There is no email as alternate login ID configured. So this is the state of this right now. It will take a minute or two to change this configuration as per this Entra ID deployment is going on. So it can take 2 to 5 minutes. We need to wait for some time. And shortly you will notice that the user accounts will be starting synchronizing from the on-premises to the Entra ID. Right now, if I show you the identities in this Entra ID, so I don't have any synchronized identities because sync has never run. We have seen that setting. So I have only few users over here, which are all the members, okay, and they are not synchronized from on-premises. That is their state. One user has now been synchronized. This is on-premises directory synchronization account for London server 1. It is actually that account that is being used as a service account for doing the authentication. This is what this account is, on Microsoft.com. So with that suffix, okay. So now you will see some of the user accounts will start populating over here in some time.